Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 420, our Superman 38 special report. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, joined as always by my co-host Jim. Sean keeps waiting, expecting me to blow up. So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of You-Know.
How's it going, eh?
On this episode, we're going to be celebrating all things Superman as we take a look at Superman number 38, the big news of the week with all of the reveals in Superman number 38. So if you haven't read the issue, you definitely want to read the issue first. I want to apologize for some of the delay this week. I had a funeral for a close family friend to go to, and my father's been ill. So we haven't been able to record. And the reason why I sound excited right now, this is one of the reasons why we read comics, right? You know, to be able to get kind of away from everything and get re-energized and excited again. And Superman was one of those issues that came at a time where I really needed to read something exciting and inspirational. And I'm glad you and I had a chance. We've already recorded our segment on this to talk really heavy about Superman number 38. We're doing this as a shorter episode to get something to you now, but you know, the news is so relevant and cool that we're glad to talk to you about Superman number 38. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network, the League of Comic Book Podcasts, and the InfiniteComics.com podcast partnership. Mr. Segulin, we are going to talk about DCBService.com, our show sponsor. DCBService.com, if you are a digital shopper, MyDigitalComics.com, Comixology, you want to link those accounts to DCBService.com because 5% of those purchases doesn't cost you anything more, gets you a discount towards your DCB service order. What you want to do is go to their site, click on those links while logged into your DCB service account, and you will get credit for those purchases from DCBService.com. Jim, there is some very, very cool bundles available this episode, including from DCBService.com, the Convergence tie-ins.
Yeah, we got some really neat bundles this time, and I love getting these, one-click, one-stop shoppings because all of the 40 books that are the Convergence tie-ins, this does not include the weekly Convergence. You'll have to still order those separate, but all of the from Atom, Green Lantern Corps, Flash, yada, yada, the full 9 yards, 50% off all the titles. Regular price, $159.60, DCBS price, $79.60. I'm like, wow, this is really cool, very exciting, but the cool bundles don't stop there because once again, for all those same tie-ins, all those same connecting, the 40 issues, they are offering Chip Kid variant bundles. Again, same 50% off, only $79.60 for all titles, for all 40 titles. And also I was looking at some of the Convergence stuff. There's some really cool very cool variant titles on the actual weekly Convergence issues, as well. So I'm very happy. I'm going to be getting a lot of variants in this thing because I was looking at a couple of the names, they're associating with the variant covers, and I'm like, oh, yes, I'm going to get that and that and that.
And actually, each of the Convergence weekly issues, the 8-issue miniseries, those are available from DCBService.com if you order them individually at 50% off as well. So that's the regular weekly book, not these tie-ins that you're mentioning in the bundle. So you can actually get the whole event. If you're shopping for the whole event, you can get the single weekly issues and the bundle of the tie-ins. All of it's at 50% off, which is really a nice deal from DCBService.com. Actually, as I'm looking at a lot of these Convergence issues, like Convergence Action Comics and stuff like that, those are 40% off if you buy them individually. So if you buy them in the bundle, you're actually saving an additional 10% on all the issues than if you ordered them singly from DCBService.com. So there's an advantage of, each you're earning 10% of them. You're getting 10% more of a discount by buying them in the bundle. So that's always a nice bonus as well. The creative talent that's available on these Convergence issues is just staggering. I'm really excited for this event. Over at InStockTrades.com, we're Superman happy, and Superman Earth 1 hardcover volume 3 has come out. If you forgot to pre-order it, InStockTrades.com is the place to get it. It's $22.99 regularly, 50% off, only $11.49, 136 pages. Joseph Michael Straczynski doing it again. Artie and Siaf and Sandra Hope. This is such a cool series. I've really loved the first 2 volumes. I'm excited to read volume 3 tonight. Actually, that's my plan. I'm going to read Action Comics and this because it's Superman Happy. You pointed out that like this. Hey, dude, did you catch that this was out and we got them? I'm really excited to read this tonight. So, Superman Earth 1 hardcover volume 3. Check out our friends at InStockTrades.com if you didn't grab yours. Mr. Seguin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the books we're discussing on today's show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some Superman.
Come on, Skreel. Let's pay these Plutonian beam makers a visit.
This episode, we're going to be chatting about Superman number 38. The writer is Geoff Johns, the pencils John Romita Jr., Klaus Janson on inks, Laura Martin with Ulysses Areola, Dan Brown and Will Quintana on colors, Sal Cipriano lettering, wraparound cover by Romita Jr., Janson and Martin, variant cover with Lee Moder and Michael Atea. The Flash 75th Anniversary variant cover by Kevin Nolan after Kurt Swan and Sheldon Moloff. Ricky Purdon, Associate Editor, Eddie Berganza, Group Editor. Superman, of course, created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster by special arrangement with the Jerry Siegel family. This episode, just because of our schedules, Jim and I decided to talk about the big news surrounding Superman. We plan to do, and we're going to do it for our next episode, an episode focusing on the weekly books. This news and what was going on in this was, you couldn't ignore this. And I thank you for catching the fact that this was released this week. I don't know why I had it in my brain that this was Superman 39, that this was all happening. And because when the news hit, I'm like, oh, they're announcing it for the following issue. I had no idea that all these payoffs were coming into this one. New costume, new powers, and other reveals in this issue. Over just general impressions, Jim, what did you think about this issue and this story?
Overall, I love this story. This is a great story, and this is a really cool issue. You know, this has been this Men of Tomorrow story that they've been running with Superman has been outstanding, and I've really enjoyed it. So it's overall, yes, keep more. It's Geoff Johns. It's John Romita Jr., who I admit I'm not 100%. I know I've read his stuff, but off the top of my head, I can't say, oh, yeah, he did this and he did that. But I'm digging his art style. I'm liking what he's doing. And again, also, you got to give full credit to inks and colors and just the full crew and whatnot on this title. This is a really cool story and a really good looking book. So I'm very, very happy with stuff that's going on.
Spider-Man and X-Men would have been where you've seen his work previously before, because he's a Marvel guy. I mean, that's, and he came over here. Love what he's doing now. It was an adjustment for me because I do think of him when I see his work, Marvel. I mean, I just kind of think of that vibe. I'm finding now that I'm loving his take. It's seeing him stretch his creative muscles and do something so DC. I mean, really, it's either Superman or Bats, that are so blatantly DC. And for some reason, I think when an artist comes over and they do Superman, you're really touching on like the shining light of DC, if that makes sense, which I think is a lot harder to do almost, because I think Batman tends to lend himself more just because of all the Elseworld stories over the year to being a little bit more forgiving to a new artistic take. Whereas Superman, there tends to be a definitive idea of what Superman should look like, if I'm making any sense.
Oh, definite. Yeah. With Superman and Batman, both, we have these images in our head. And if you start deviating from that, it will be it'll be glaring. But it's funny because with Batman, there's always been the variations of the long spiky ear, the short stubby ones, the solid eyes, the white eye, just all the little variations that each artist brings to it. But Superman is one that's had less variations, that I've seen. Now, there'll be little bits here, little bits there, but there's never been like how that glaring difference of the long pointy eared Batman cowl compared to the short pointy eared Bat cowl, like those type of glaring differences in Superman titles. So I always like seeing, I like seeing that consistency. I like seeing that I look at it and I know, okay, that's Superman.
I don't want to wait. Let's talk about the costume. Because very story driven. which is what I was assuming was going to happen. And that, for me, is all it takes when you do a new costume, is it to be story-driven. The other catch is, I'm going to be 100% honest, I like the tweaks. You know what I like about it? It's getting a little bit away from the armor and more into it being, more of a traditional Superman costume. It's more of the Superman, and the costume not overtaking that. That is always my preference. Don't get me wrong. I love the armor style and the story behind it, but this to me is we're getting back to a little bit more classic Superman, and that for me right away. And I love the cape. I love the way the cape is attached at the shoulders. I think that's just a really good look. The gloves is a thing I've seen commonly. The gloved-ish hands was a thing I've seen on the internet that was kind of a criticism. I have zero issue with it because I like so much. I love the new boots. I think the tweaks that he's done, it's still the new 52 look, but tweaked to be a little bit more skewed towards the classic, and yet with a little new. I've always loved the shoulder look for the cape, though. For some reason, that's always been my kind of take on it. What about you, though? I mean, that's my impression. Where do you fall on this?
It's a Superman costume. It's funny because everyone's like, the new costume. I'm like, that's the same costume. It's just little tweaks. It's artist interpretation. I have absolutely zero issue with the costume. Mm-hmm. Even the stuff you mentioned with the cape, I do like how that cape looks. That's really cool. Yeah. With the way it's kind of connected sort of underneath the chest plate. There's, again, it doesn't look like you or I could make this costume. No. And that's the key. For me with Superman, that's why I love the armor, because there was no way one of us could have made that costume. It had to be something extraordinary, had to be something extraterrestrial. Again, the costume still looks, Superman still looks special. The longer sleeves, shorter sleeves, that wouldn't bother me at all. When people first started talking about a new costume, I thought they were going to do some dramatic changes. And that's where I was prepared. Like, this is not a dramatic change. This could even fall under the category of artist interpretation of it. I zero issue with it. I think it looks cool. Let's continue on with the story. The only thing that does, and it's something that hasn't been around for a while, but I do still like it. I like the little curly Q whenever he has that on the forehead. Uh-huh. He hasn't had that for, I want to think, all of the new 52.
Right.
But I personally like that little curl, the Superman curl on the forehead. I think that's always an iconic image.
The costume itself, though, had tweaks. And I guess the question is, I get what you're saying, and I agree with you. I mean, it's not like, oh my gosh, now Superman's wearing a blatantly all yellow costume with green stockings or something like that, where it's kind of like, what were they thinking? Or you really have to adapt to something new. But with the tweaks that are there, because there's quite a few. The cape certainly has tweaks. There's some tweaks around the neck area. Obviously the length of the sleeves. It looks a little, to me, it looks more like a cloth suit than an armored suit. And the boots are definitely different. The cape seems to have, come to a point at the bottom. I don't know if that's going to, be consistent across all interpretations of this, but I quite liked that. Do you think that they're good tweaks, or are they just kind of like, it's not, I don't care one way or another on it? To me, I think they're little tiny tweaks, which is a good thing, because you don't want to make Superman unrecognizable, and that's where you're alluding to, and I agree with you 100%. But to me, I really like the tweaks. I think the tweaks are an improvement on a costume that I was already enjoying.
Yeah, see, it's for me, the biggest change is this is cloth appearance as opposed to body armor. And I think that's the biggest part of saying it's a new costume, is that would be a more dramatic difference. This looks more cloth oriented. It doesn't look like he has the Kryptonian armor anymore, which, yes, is okay. But no, I did like the Kryptonian armor. But the fact that it was destroyed by his new superpower kind of explains why it's not around. Personally, I'd like to see them one day bring it back, or like on special occasions, or how, like with Batman, how he's got his heavy armored costume or his winter gear or his summer gear. I wouldn't mind seeing them, some part of the Fortress of Solitude, we see the armor being repaired by Kryptonian technology. And this is what he's wearing now. Maybe he'll go back to the other one. Maybe he'll go with this. Maybe he'll do that. If you're going to keep within this realm of, costume, I'm cool with it. I'm okay with it. Had they, like, you think the new, not the new 52, the weekly series with Shazam in the Superman costume, the way they changed the costume for him, that's a dramatic change, and that's a new costume. I was thinking they were going to go somewhere along the lines of that, and basically laying the groundwork for why 5 years later we have a different costume.
So you'd be okay with this as long as he wears it like on Armor Tuesday, the old one.
Exactly, yeah. Armor Tuesday or Doomsday Tuesday. Oh, time to fight Doomsday. Let me armor up, or something like that. I think it'd be kind of a neat thing. But to be honest,
do we know
their armor?
Do we know this
isn't
isn't
the super costume?
I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off. Do we know that this isn't Kryptonian?
Exactly. It could very easily be Kryptonian cloth, which again I'm cool with. It's the whole, I want it to be a Superman costume, not a costume that Superman is wearing. And right now this looks like a Superman costume. This looks kind of cool. I like the little, how it's, it's not, the way they drew it where it's not just one solid piece. It looks like, pieces are coming together. Again, it's that same type where it was the plates before, but now it's the connecting, allows for breathability and movability and, flexibility and all the other abilities that are out there.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more. I honestly think, to me, the tweaks are noticeable, and they're an improvement to me. I don't think it's an issue that they aren't for you. I get what you're saying. As far as you've got a certain idea in your head as far as foundationally, this is what I expect out of a Superman costume. I was liking what was here before. I'm liking this. For me, it's not your answer's correct for you in the sense you're saying there really just isn't a big difference for me. This is kind of, it's Superman. That's what I'm looking for. And that's cool. For me, just being honest, the tweaks, especially in that last page where, he's telling Jimmy, which we'll get to next because we might as well just jump to that afterwards. The tweaks were noticeable, and they were things that I really liked. And I think that was something that really stood out for me. In particular, I love the cape. There's just the way that it's connected. I just think there's something really cool about it. I love the way Romita Jr. is drawing it with it coming to the point at the end, and the boots. I just think that they're little tiny tweaks. I'm with you that I like the New 52 style. I've grown to really enjoy it, so I didn't want it to be super crazy different. But they are, like you said, artistic interpretation tweaks, which I'm a fan of. I like that, where it's very identifiable, it's very iconic. I think Superman is iconic. To me, the tweaks make it even more iconic. It skews like a hybrid between New 52 and what was classic, and I think that's a good move because it just looks more classic. For a person who's coming in and, has seen the classic old Superman, there's not a big stretch between it. But I really love the tweaks that make it look very New 52. I like the line work. I like that they minimized it a little bit, compared to what it was previously. Just those little tiny tweaks, I think, just really, kept in what worked really well and made some tweaks that I think have improved it direction-wise. That's just me, though.
And it's another quick comment. I'm looking back at how he drew the costume before it exploded, and the cape still has that coming down to a point. So that's something that hasn't changed at all.
So that's his artistic interpretation.
That's his artistic style with the cape, and it's neat because you could see it in the earlier scene where he's fighting Ulysses and he's telling the people, "Hey, Utopia is gone." You could see as he's hovering there how it flows down. So that's going to be a constant thing. Yeah. So if you like that, that's going to be around for as long as he's doing it. It looks like that's his groove. And
I do like it. Thank you for pointing that out because I think I'm looking more because of the fact that it's one of those things when you're like, know to analyze the costume, you start doing it. And I just really like his interpretation of the cape. That to me looks like something that would give you a streak when a guy's flying. I like that.
Yeah, and I do like the costume. So I'm not, it's not a, whatever. I do like it. I think it looks good. I like his interpretation of it. It's just, for me, this wasn't a dramatic change. So to say this is a new costume, I don't consider this a new costume. I consider it just an artistic interpretation of what's out there. It's very easily could have this hanging up in his wall or hanging up in his closet somewhere, whatnot. I think, this, and again, I like it. It's Superman. It's still very Superman to me.
Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen. That's totally how I read the last two pages. It's a reversal in the way that it's built. in the sense that it's coming from Clark Kent into being Superman. And I've always liked the Clark Kent-Jimmy Olsen relationship in the New 52. I'm glad that they built a relationship between the two. But what I was missing is that he's Superman's buddy. You know what I mean? Yeah. I always think of him as Superman's pal. I love that they went there with this. That's one of the reasons why I'm glad he told him. I'm like, you know what? This is great. Now he is a friend of Superman in a way that matches very quickly what we've known about him. And I love that the water bottle drop at the end I thought was great. It's kind of like you don't expect to turn around and see, Clark be Superman. And I love that it came out of a story where Superman's like, you know what, I just need that someone I can trust, and Jimmy's that guy. The two of them have been through a lot. We've seen in the New 52. Good time to do this 38 issues in, to kind of develop this relationship more. I want to see more of Superman and Jimmy together. That's important to me. That's an important supporting cast member to this series, and I'm really glad they're continuing this development.
Yeah, this is part that is weird that first time I read through, I was like, what? What? And I was completely flabbergasted and surprised because I'm thinking new power, new costume, new power, new costume. Wasn't completely thinking, oh, hey, he's going to tell Jimmy Olsen his secret identity. So it came out of left field, completely kneecapped me. So I got that shock going. And then I'm just thinking, what? But you go back through and second and third read through. And you just read these 2 pages where, Jimmy's sitting there telling him all the stuff that he did, where his parents, corrupt business people left him billions. They faked their death and they're going to return later. And they just were expecting him to hold on to the money until he gets back. He does a 180, gives it all away to all these people who need the money. He's now completely broke, destitute, but he did the right thing. And I think I was like, that's a cool moment between these two. A cool, a cool sign of Jimmy Olsen. And I like the fact that it was Clark realizing, he needs somebody to talk to. He needs somebody that can be there for him. He needs that person that he can trust. And I was like, after reading it through, I'm like, you know what? This is cool. This is a good way to go with it. It's one of those stuff that I always liked about the Lois and Clark relationship, where Clark Kent has that person that he can talk to. He's got that human connection that he can talk to and trust. He's always had Lana Lang, but there's that whole kind of rift, sort of negative stuff going on between them, so he can't really at a moment's notice drop everything and go talk to her. Now he's got someone in Metropolis. Now he's got his local connection. So I'm now a fan of this, and I enjoy how this played out. And I agree with you. I love that final page where he just goes look on his face. That was just, again, outstanding work.
And I agree with you on, I liked that the parents' story, I'm glad you pointed that out, because the parents' story building into this, where Clark sees, wow, this is a guy who just gave all that up, because there's something, first of all, his history with his parents, but also there's something intrinsically good about Jimmy Olsen, right? Yeah. And that's who Jimmy is. And I really like that it felt very modern, but it's also, how do we make Jimmy Olsen feel like that guy today? And this did that. It felt very today, very current, yet very much in line with who I think Jimmy Olsen is. I love that kind of stuff. I geek out at that. You've made him now relevant to today. He's that Jimmy that we know and love. I love that Clark's back at the Daily Planet. Those are things. And I'm glad that he had his journey to get back there. That was something that was really good and well done in the series. I'm really Superman happy right now. I'm really enjoying the fact that I leap towards this stuff. The Jimmy Olsen thing, I agree with you. It came out of left field. I applaud them for not, because I read articles about this costume and the new power. I didn't see that anywhere. And I loved that there was, besides 2 really cool things that I was looking forward to in this issue, I love that there's a surprise that came out of nowhere, because that just added to the experience to me. This issue felt very, very special.
And, well, here's an interesting thing. I picked everything up on digitally, and I picked up all the weeklies digitally so I could read them and, so we continue a discussion. I saw 38 out there. I didn't know this was the issue with the powers and the costume, but I saw it and I clicked on it. because I knew I'd have enough time to read one more issue. I'm like, oh, I got to see how the Ulysses stories continues. So I knew I was getting my box, which I got today, but I had to have just that one day earlier, just so I could read the issue what happened. That's how Superman happy I am now. So this was a whole kind of happy accident that I realized this was the costume issue. Because like you, I thought it was in 39. I thought the cover was a big cover showing new costume, new power.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize this until I started reading it. Then you and I were talking. I'm like, hey, 38, that's the new costume. So they're doing some really cool stuff with Superman now that I'm very happy with what's going on and what's he doing and just how Clark Kent is, how Superman is. They're really making sure both characters are doing very well, and adding Olsen now to the whole Clark Kent Superman mix is really going to help out the story and is going to have some really neat possibilities.
Well, we talked on Wednesday. I didn't know how this week was going to play out for us. And I saw that Earth 2 was coming out, so I wanted to let you know about that. That's why I called you. And you, fortunately, were reading this when I called you. And you had already known about Earth 2, but you pointed this out to me, and I really appreciate you pointing this out because it really gave us an opportunity to do this episode and get something out to our listeners a little faster, because originally we had planned to do a full-blown show, and there's no way I would have gotten this out with the way my schedule's been without, waiting until the weekend. So this gives us a chance to do a special report, get something out to our listeners now to really talk about this, because this issue was really cool to me. Why don't we step back a little bit? And I think with the power, let's just talk about in the issue as we get to it. You know what I love about the wraparound cover that we get to see that? What a great cover that is.
I know.
Especially with the supporting cast. Watching what's going on with Ulysses and Superman, what a great cover that is.
Oh God, yeah. Again, it's funny because there's some neat stuff going on with the digital comics. I'm actually very happy that I'm getting more digital stuff, and it's making it easier for me to. When we're recording, I got it up right here. I'm not flipping through pages, but it's also just on general readability and just general, let me get this now. Let me read this. And the wraparound cover is definitely one of those things that looks really cool.
Well, it's funny. I've started making a shift. I love our sponsor, DCB Service. And for myself, because I'm doing like a hybrid of digital and paper products and statues and things like that, I'm getting anything that's consumable I get from DCB Service. I did this month, and my order was very different this month. I ordered a statue, and I ordered I ordered the Wonder Woman statue. But,
nice.
But besides the Wonder Woman statue, I ordered from DCB Service. I'm a big fan of Stephen King and his Dark Tower, and I've got the individual issues of the Dark Tower series that Peter David's been doing. But Laura Martin, who's the colorist on this, did the color work on the Stephen King series. They have omnibuses, collecting them broken up by the eras. So they're in right now the Drawing of the Three, which is the second book in the series. But the first two volumes that they've been doing at Marvel has been collections of the early years of Roland, which was collected in the first Dark Tower omnibus. But they're $90 at DCB Service, $90 omnibuses that I wouldn't have been able to afford previously. I ended up getting both of them, the first two. I'm like, this month I'm going to grab those omnibuses because I'm doing a lot of digital reading. I want to grab both of those. So I added those to my order, which I wouldn't have done before if I wasn't doing like kind of the hybrid. So it's nice. I'm finding I'm getting more special editions, collected editions of the issues that I want to read in those big bundles, the big hardcovers, special volumes like that are slipcased or which has just been a shift. So I love that our show sponsor has those because I think all comic companies are doing a lot more of these treasury and special edition releases. I know that companies like, for example, like IDW, I think it's IDW, and I apologize because, I look through my list a lot of times. They're releasing those Batman dailies in those nice, hardcovers. They're up to the Silver Age. There's Batman dailies. I'm going to start grabbing those. There's just some things that like I haven't read or I have read and that they're favorites that I want to start focusing on getting in those bound collections, just to have more of those on my shelf to be able to page through and revisit storylines that I've been really enjoying. So I'm kind of focusing on that with DCB Service. You know what else I'm going to start focusing on a lot more too? You've gotten me very interested in these alternate covers. Just because you're like geeking out over the fact that I'm grabbing these and I want to get that. I'm like, oh, I haven't been getting all of them. But boy, I kind of want to. And you know, our friend Chris Kendall, he's getting, like, he got the Darwin Cook ones.
Oh, nice.
And, you know, he got me kind of on the kick. I'm like, oh, I should really be getting more of those because I didn't get the Darwin Cook ones. And I was toying around with it, but then ended up getting a couple other things. I've been, you know, in my office, I've been doing it kind of like as my man cave now when I was redoing it with my new job, because not only do I do my work in here, but I move like my game system up here, and we do our recording in here. So, you know, I've got framed art on the walls, framed posters and stuff like that. I've been adding more statues in just because I really like the statue look. I used to get more action figures and those type of things, but I like that the statues have, you know, like that pose. And they've got these great artistic statues now that they've been getting. So I'm kind of like expanding my collection of that type of thing to kind of finish off the room. But besides that, now I'm into these collected editions. And it's kind of fun that collections can evolve and change. That's one of the great things about collections, is that you can kind of change and modify them. The collected edition books, though, I'm really excited to start doing more of these omnibuses and things. The JSA one. You know, I'm a huge JSA fan. I'm going to grab that bad boy because, you know, that's like the John's run, and it's going to have to be a couple volumes. But, you know, to have all that in one nice collection that I can pull out and read and sit down and enjoy, I'm really excited for books like that, to be able to sit down and read multiple issues of a book that I really enjoyed. With collect editions for you, do you, I know you're a big one in getting, like, you know, absolute editions and collect editions like that. Do you tend to focus more on stories that you've read and shy away from ones that you haven't, or do you do like a hybrid? What is your approach?
Well, predominantly it's hardcover, and, you know, so if it's the absolutes or the hardcover deluxe edition, something like that, as opposed to just, you know, the regular trade papers. You know, the omnibuses, I'll do that, you know, but if it's something that I haven't read, it's something that I must have heard you gush over multiple times. Like, the one Frank Miller story. It's a non-DC one, and I can't remember it now. It's the samurai one.
Oh, Ronin.
Thank you.
That was DC.
That was DC?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, it's funny because I have it over there, and I haven't had a chance to pull it out and read it. But a little while ago, they had done collected hardcover edition, and I remember you always talking about how great it was. I'm like, oh, let me get that.
What's an did you get the absolute?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. That's DC because it's an absolute.
Oh, yeah. That. Yeah. But it's funny, I haven't had a chance to sit down and read it yet. I've got this pile of these hardcovers and these absolutes that I've picked up because I've heard you or I've heard other people just absolutely rave about how wonderful these things are. Yeah. And I'll get them, but when I get a free time to read them, that's when I read them. And I don't know if I'll ever have enough free time, but one day I want to just, you know, lately I've been having like days where I've got an option of watching TV or reading comic books. And I'm just not going to the TV as much as I used to. I've stopped getting some of all my shows that I used to watch, and now I'm going back more to reading some more, doing some more comic book reading, looking at actual book, you know, books to read, you know. So it's I'm kind of shifting again in what I'm doing on my free time and my downtime.
I'm doing like a weird hybrid of stuff, and I really like it. I'm finding I'm dividing my time between comic books, novels on my Kindle, and video gaming, and, you know, television. I really trying to like get an even balance between all those things, because what I'm finding is, you know, kind of the break from all of those things is making me excited for them more. You know, like I really look forward to reading the novel. I really look forward, like I'm reading Mr. Mercedes now from Stephen King. I just read his book Revival and really dug it. So I'm kind of on a Stephen King kick again, you know, as far as reading his novels. So I'm reading Mr. Mercedes right now. I just started it, so I can't really comment on that one. But Revival I really enjoyed. So besides that, I'm playing my PlayStation. I'm really enjoying the PlayStation 4. I'm really enjoying comics. I'm liking doing. I think what I'm doing with all those things, though, I'm doing marathons. Like the DC shows, I like kind of watching all of them together. It's kind of fun to do that. Like block the DC block. So I'm really finding that I'm enjoying doing that kind of thing. And, comics, I'm enjoying sitting down for a comic block where it's not just reading one book. I like reading multiple books together. My stockpile, I used to get annoyed with it because I've mentioned on the show many times, I'm sure people have kind of heard, I kind of have this like weird roller coaster when I talk about the stockpile. And now I'm in a different place with it. I like the variety because I don't know what mood I'm going to be in. Like I've been enjoying going in and reading. I'm starting to read, it started off as Collider, but it's, Federal Bureau of Physics or something. It's FBP or something like that. I changed it to. I've read the first 3 issues now. It's one I stockpiled. The concept looked cool, and I'm really enjoying it. Like I'm into this book now. It was Collider for issue 1, but then there was a legal reason they had to change the name. And actually from DC Noise, one of the guys in DC Noise, and I'm drawing a blank over which one, because I follow all of them on Facebook, mentioned that he's reading it. And I respect the opinions of those guys. So I'm like, oh, cool. He's geeking out about this book. I haven't read it. This is good motivation for me to start. 100% correct. Great Vertigo book. So if you haven't been reading that one, I highly recommend it just as a different sort of read. I want to shout out the Vertigo. What was the name of the collection? Vertigo's doing those quarterly books. And the new one just came out, and Tom King had a story in there that was absolutely brilliant. And I really dug it. It was black. It was the Black. It's the quarterly book that they're doing. But it was an anthology, and it's come out quarterly. And, oh boy, I'm just drawing a blank right now. But Tom King had a story in there that I just highly recommend. I recommend the whole issue, actually. But let's move on, because I don't have the name of it right now. I'll jump to it a little bit later. But that was something that I really enjoyed, so I wanted to shout that one out. I like those anthologies from Vertigo, because the nice part about those are you don't have to have read the issue before in order to enjoy them. They're very contained. I also like, though, that I read that in a couple sittings. Just because of the fact that at the time I started reading it, it was late at night. I wasn't able to read the whole thing. It was nice to be able to read like 3 or 4 short stories in there, because it's an oversized book, and then to come back to it a little later. And I really enjoyed everything in it. The theme was all Black related. I mean, it was all, every story had some tie to the theme. And I really liked that the creative teams, the artists and writers, Fabio Moon had a great story in there. I mean, it's a collection of who's who of talent. Jeff Lemire did a Sweet Tooth story in there, and it was a Sweet Tooth story before the series. So it was fun to, remember me geeking out about Sweet Tooth. I love Sweet Tooth. So it's an anthology that's it's CMKY or something like that it's called. It's the anthology. It just came out, I want to say a week or 2 ago, maybe a little bit longer, but I recommend the issue. It was a lot of fun, just great talent. And here's the thing, if there's a story that wasn't quite hitting you, the next story's going to, because each story is done by a different creative team, and the theme, I just love the creativity of those books, and I want to shout them out, because if you're looking for something a little bit different, you're like, I don't really have the budget to jump on a new series, but I would just like to, dig my teeth into something different. That Vertigo Quarterly, grab an issue of it. The short stories in there are well worth it. It'll be your, Jim's palate cleansers. You coined that on our show is something that you really like to say. And it really they're very innovative stories, great artistic talent. Every story's a little bit different. They stick to the theme. There's something in there for everybody, and I can't recommend it enough. It really was something that I just really wanted to geek out about. And I actually, I ended up Facebook messaging Tom King, just because I wanted to tell him how much I really enjoyed his story in there, because I just thought it was a classic war story, but it touched on some very mature tones, and it was all black and white. So it was just, there was something about it. I was very moved by the telling of the story. It touched on social issues, and it was really, I didn't know what the story was going to be. I didn't expect it, and it just wound up being like you go from like fun stories to something with a little more mature depth. I loved all of it. The whole thing about the anthology was it really hit every emotional string all the way through. And Tom's story in particular, I just really dug. I'm becoming a really big fan of Tom King. We had him on the show and had a good opportunity to talk to him, but it was unsolicited by him. He didn't ask for us to reach out. I wanted to shout out because I thought it was a cool story. It's a who's who of talent in that book. If you're enjoying Grayson right now, I highly recommend picking it up because it's just great to see Tom King do something a little different, and it really was good.
Yeah, and these are the Vertigo Quarterlies, CMYK.
Thank you.
Number 1 was Sienna, 2 magenta, 3 yellow, and 4 is black.
Yeah, and four is the issue that I'm referring to. You do not need to have read any of the ones previously in order to enjoy it. I do recommend. I picked up all of them. I've loved them all, and it just was something. I was just struck by our conversation right now. I'm like, oh, I really should shout this out because I really enjoyed that issue. And thank you, Jim, for looking that up because it's really just a well-written title by everybody, all the creative talent in there. I want to see anthologies do well because I want more of them. I just think they're nice for something a little different. Superman. We were talking Superman. I love when we do this kind of stuff, though, because this is half the fun of comics, right? We want to geek out over them. We get the opening page where we've got Superman and Ulysses fighting. That move where you see Ulysses' hand out there and Superman, taking a beat down. There's something about that. I'm going to take back everything I said. About how the similarities between the two stories. I know I kind of got into a different place in our previous discussion about this. My gosh, is this a great issue. I just love seeing the battle between the two of them, but also, talking about social issues, the debate between the two. You had to have loved this issue because we really got to see the moral code of Superman that I think we both grew up with and know and love done today. Superman was really a beacon for hope in this issue. People did not know what to do when they were returned to Earth. And Superman, really was, taking up this role. It's one of the reasons, and this really is not to start a debate between you and me. It is one of the reasons why I see him as a leader. And I really am not saying that to, go off of that tangent that we did before. It's more of I want to clarify kind of my view of what Superman is and who he is. I love the inspirational side of Superman. I know this is something you and I deeply connect on when it comes to this character. It's the idea of Superman being that symbol that people look up to. And it's different than Batman at his best when they do Superman right. I'm a Batman junkie. He's the guy that brought me to the dance. When Superman's done right, though, this is what, I got out of Christopher Reeve as Superman. When you have the moments where the people are back on Earth and they're kind of looking up at him in the sky and he's recognizing they need something now. Dude he's got a black eye, his face is bulging because he's just been beaten down. No way if somebody beat me down like that, I'm like, hey, this is a good time for me to be inspirational. But Superman does it, and he pulls it off with a swagger. This is great writing, fantastic art that only works when you got a build like this. This is a story that has built all along. And this is where it distinguishes itself from other offerings. And I really love the fact that I'm Superman giddy in a way that I haven't been in a long time, and it's only increased now. The Superman books are really hitting full thrusters, and I think it's important to note that when we're doing an issue like this. Sure, we touched on this one because of, the buzz around it, but man, the story just delivers, and if you haven't been reading Superman in a while, I hope you jumped on this issue and you start picking up more because this is a great time to come back to Superman.
Oh, definitely. And, the fight sequences with him and Ulysses, you see serious power levels going back and forth. He gets knocked how many feet into an asteroid, or not an asteroid, really, just remnants of the Ulysses destroyed planet. Then the next scene, he's blasted completely through them. And it just, again, it's that power and just, there was some really cool, just, visual treats in their fight sequence. But it was funny because when they get blasted back to Earth, cut through a building's just about to fall and crush the people, Superman in for the save. And again, it's I'm looking at the images now, and I didn't notice it before, but I'm seeing the little triangle cape at the bottom of the cape, that we've been talking about before. I'm like, I never noticed it before. Now I'm looking at it, but you just see the people huddled in just that last second, just that last moments, and I was laughing. When I first read through it, and Superman had his inspirational speech. He had that, that hoorah moment, and I'm laughing going, okay, this is going to lead to another reluctant leader debate between Sean and I, because right here we're seeing Superman not be reluctant. We're seeing Superman be forefront and saying, hey, you got to step up, people. This is what you got to do. This is, look to, you can't look to this utopia. You got to look to right here, solve your problems here, reach out, get the help you need here, step up. And to me, that again that's the type of cool leadership, and that's a cool inspirational type of leader that Superman can be.
I'm going to point out a panel that I just adored. You see Lois and Jimmy with this sequence, and you're looking over their shoulders. First, millions of us are offered a place on Ulysses' planet. Then all vanish, and then they show back up in a flash of light. What's going on, Lois? I love the perspective shift on that, because at first you felt like you were hanging with Jimmy and Lois. I love that. Geeked it out. And I love that, you have the other panels where we're seeing, obviously, Ulysses' family, his parents talking about this. But then we jump to Lois. Lois's intuition. Something's not right, Jimmy.
Yeah.
I loved that. It was, it's a seemingly small sequence, but again, it tells a lot about these characters that we love, and I loved the perspective shifts. What a really great job of pulling us as the reader along with Jimmy and Lois and shifting us around to seeing them from a different perspective, like they were almost turning towards us. I don't know if that was a conscious choice. I felt that way as a reader. Really dug that sequence because of it, because I'm big fans of both characters.
Yeah, and I love the when Superman's giving his inspirational speech, that the last panel, the one of the last panels, you see Lois and Jimmy sitting there, and just absolutely love the way those two are drawn in that, because you see just that, this is Superman kind of look on their face that any of us would geek out over and have that same type of look, and it was like that was a really cool moment.
I like that Superman was pleading with him. I don't want to fight you. Yeah. It's kind of something inherently Superman. The reveal of the new power. I like that we don't quite know what it is right away. We see the battle between him and Ulysses, then the explosion, and you don't quite know. I like that it was something that Batman had to analyze later and explain to us, because I like the sense of discovery. We saw the event and we didn't quite know what it was. I mean, obviously we know the explosion came from Superman, but we didn't know what that meant. And Batman's analysis and what it means for Superman when that power's been used. Not only does it cause this devastation, but it also leaves Superman in a vulnerable state, which is an interesting thing to note. The fact that he's basically human for the time that he's back in that stage. I quite liked it. What do you think? I guess I should let's throw that out there on the table. What do you think of the new power? Good choice? Interesting? Does it add to the story? Something epic, in Superman? I like it because it kind of takes me back to the days where Superman had these like crazy, weird types of visions and things like that to him. I like this kind of stuff.
Oh, I definitely like the going supernova or the super flare or solar flare, whatever they're calling it. To me, it was a nova blast. Is how I'm
sure.
That's how I'm referring to it as in my head. Until I get a definitive no, it's called this. But it was a really just you think about just his powers come from the sun. He's a giant solar battery. So right here was one giant unleashing, and the whole analogy, just the way it was drawn, looks absolutely wonderful. Sure. Got to give full props to color team on this one, because when you do stuff like sunlight or solar flares or fire, it could be if your color team's not on the ball, they're not doing their thing, it could be a very plain looking. But you look through this, you look at the different waves, the way they're using the yellows and the oranges and the reds, and it's just that cascading type of effect throughout it. This is some absolutely beautiful couple pages. Yeah. And I love the fact that they didn't bog down with any language. There's no dialogue except for an occasional scream as he's just unleashing full power, but you get this heavy saturation of the yellows and the reds, of the solar, of the energy, and it just some really cool just sit back and enjoy them type of panel. So I'm definitely kind of liking this, digging it. It's kind of reminding me. I can't think of what the Superman story. It's one of those Elseworld kind of potential endings of Superman where he basically becomes a son. I know All-Star Superman kind of had that in there where he becomes the son, and there have been other classic Superman stories where they've done that with the character. It's kind of like, to me, a precursor to him eventually becoming a giant solar battery and him actually having to step into the sun and becoming Earth's son.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't think that wasn't 1 million, was it? I don't know.
I can't remember the name of the story off the top of my head now, but it was just that was the first thought that popped in my head when I started seeing that, going, yeah, well, this is kind of like, again, this is a precursor to what could possibly happen to Superman. And again, it was something I really digged.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact story, so, if you're screaming at your iPad when I said 1 million, it really, I remember the story, though. I know exactly what you're talking about. It was quite a while ago. Good story, and it's great to kind of, good reference, Jim. I really liked the way that this played out with Ulysses. I'm glad they didn't kill him. That to me would have been I don't want to say anticlimactic, but it would have been anti-Superman. I like it better that Superman is still finding good in him. Where he's sitting there, he's not a villain, kind of looking at this guy's misguided, look how he's raised, and, we got to understand what his loss was. And I like that Superman still connects with him, but also I think learns from him that, it's really important to have strong, positive connections. And I think that's part of what Jimmy was, too. It's kind of like, maybe get in touch with my humanity a little bit here and reach out to people that I consider important in my life. And I think that's a direct, relationship with Ulysses. I think, to me, what Superman needs from Jimmy is what we're missing from the fact that his parents aren't here. And I'm glad that Jimmy knows, because I love Superman and Diana. I'm a fan of the Superman-Wonder Woman relationship. I think it's cool. I like the idea of him having a confidant of both identities that's human. I like that Lana knows, and that part's all cool, but Lana's not a regular in the series. It works in Action Comics with what they're doing right now, but she's in a different place, especially with her relationship with Steel in there. She's not that constant. Jimmy's a constant. They're roommates. This whole vibe going on. I really dig this. This is a good move. It's an interesting move, and it fills a void that I'm feeling with him having that. I love his parents, and I loved that confidant relationship with it. This is a new take, a new way to give us that. And it's something that I think is missing from Superman, so I'm excited to see them develop this further.
Yeah, and it was funny with the sequence between Batman and Superman, back in the cave, the analysis, and everything that was going through. My two favorite scenes from that sequence was the one line when he's talking, where Bruce is talking about how, you created a solar flare, a super flare. I'd be worried about how powerful you were getting if it wasn't you. I love that line, the fact that, Bruce trusts Clark so much and he knows him. Hey, this is a precursor. Your other powers may also do this type of stuff. If it was anybody but you, I'd be worried. And I like this. I like that comment between the two of them. I thought that was a really cool friend moment between them. But I got to tell you, I love the Alfred sequence where he's bringing in the cape. I did what I could to remove the dirt, but it doesn't seem to appear to react to heat or steam. Again, classic Alfred moment. Just one little panel in there made me chuckle, didn't take away anything from, the story.
Yeah, I agree with you. It didn't take anything away. If anything, it was very consistently Alfred, which is really important to me. They had a Lego DC Comics superheroes movie that was just released. Is actually it's with Bizarro, and it's the Justice League versus it's billed as the Justice League versus the Bizarro League, because Bizarro starts to create his own Justice League. Now, you either like the whole Lego premise or you don't. They tend to be more family friendly. It's a different sort of story, but in the story, and I don't want to spoil too much on it. The premise is that Batman doesn't trust Superman. To an extreme. It is a little bit more comedy oriented, but it's got great stories in there. It does read like, it had a who's who. Hawkman was in it. Plastic Man was in it. Hawkman was in it. Wonder Woman was in it. Hawkman was in it. Yeah, they had Green Lantern was in it, and Hawkman was in it. And Hawkman had a ship, and he was in it. and the ship was in it. Cyborg had a great role in it. It was honestly really cool the way that the story played out. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen it. It's a great, if you're looking for an all ages content DC to watch with your family, this is a good one. I enjoyed it though. I don't have kids. I watched it for myself. I enjoyed it as a DC fan. It took me back to the days of Saturday morning cartoons. It's lighter fare, and it was fun and made me smile, and I really enjoyed it. It's not going to give you the same type of storytelling that you're getting in the direct-to-release DC animated movies. This really is skewed more towards the all-ages family-friendly. If you like the Lego games, you'll like this. If you don't like the storytelling that's going on in the Lego games, you won't like this. It's a companion to those, and I quite enjoyed it. It actually had a bonus feature on it of a Batman story as well.
And you know what happens, Sean, whenever you mention Lego? Mm-hmm. Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when you're part of a team. Everything is awesome for you and me.
Ouch.
You brought it up. You mentioned it, Lego. It's going to happen.
I did. Oof. Lego should pay me for the fact that I had to listen to that.
You and all the listeners.
I really liked Ulysses. I don't want to say confrontation with his family. I liked that there was a tear coming out of his eye. His family still loved him in spite of everything. Like they said that we heard you did some terrible things, but we still love you. I loved that moment. Unconditional love of family. And it's not in the sense that they don't think that he did something wrong. They're acknowledging that he did something wrong, but they're acknowledging that in spite of that, we still love you. Especially with their relationship, with him being so divided from them because of what happened. I really liked that human moment. It was great storytelling because Ulysses has been such a well-developed character. We saw him at first as being, this another dun-dun-dun hero when he comes in, but then learning the twist that really he was culling our planet, for food for this other planet. I mean, they're really going to use our people as fuel. And seeing that his parents still love him always, anyway, in spite of that, there was something to that. It felt very real and very genuine. It was nice to see in this story. Didn't take away from the intensity of what Ulysses did or anything, but it was great to see that kind of epilogue moment leading into the Chief and Jimmy's picture and all that great. It was just everything that I really love about Superman was present in this. They didn't miss a beat.
Let me ask you a question. With Ulysses, do you think he can be rehabilitated?
Ooh, boy.
Because here's why I throw it out there.
Okay.
With the modern, rehabilitation, prison, just that whole area, multiple debates go on about whether our prison system actually is rehabilitation or just keeping bad people away from good people. And there's a lot of people out there who want to actually rehabilitate people so they can become productive members of society. And one of the founding principle is the connection to family, is stuff like with the parents and just your humane treatment of prisoners and just all these. That's where all these different kind of stuff come from. The fact that this could lead to someday a rehabilitation. So when I see Superman talk to the thing to make sure the parents can come visit, that for me is always the first step of a rehabilitation. Give the prisoner, give the person a reason to want to be a productive member of society. And you think back to when Clark and Ulysses were fighting, and he's like going to destroy Earth. He's like, hey, but you're going to destroy your parents. Ulysses at that point in time was like, let them die, let everyone die, because he was so angry.
Sure.
Now, with the love and the tear, it makes you wonder, could he be rehabilitated?
Oof. It's a good question. And here's what I like. Talking about that sequence where he brings the parents there, I like at the end that shadow, seeing Superman in the shadows watching it. I like that he believes he can be. I like that he believes it's worth trying. I don't know that Superman 100% believes he can be rehabilitated, but I like that he considers it worth trying because he sees the good in him. I like to believe that too, and I love that you reference our prison system and what the goals are of it, but also some of the failures of it. I want to see that, and I think there's a lot of people that go into corrections for the purpose of hoping that they're part of something where we're rehabilitating people as well. There's some people that I think there's a doorway open to rehabilitate. There's some people where I firmly believe there's no chance in rehabilitating them. They just, they're beyond redemption. But Superman makes you believe. And in this case, he's seeing something in Ulysses. He's making me believe that there's a possibility. I would go with there's a possibility. I don't know that it's yes or no. I don't think it's as simple as that. That's probably the realist in me. But I love that as you were saying it, I'm like nodding and going, yeah, no, it's the debate here. And it's kind of cool. I like that the story's so richly told that you can't help but find the reason. You understand the reason why Superman's doing what he's doing, and you agree with it. Yet you agree there's a possibility this guy can't be. I don't know which way it would fall. He's a character I want to see again. That to me is the biggest success of this story. I would love to see Ulysses again in the future.
Oh, I definitely would as well. I think, and I would like to see him get rehabilitated. I would like to see him want to be a productive member of society, or just, if nothing else, you think about his power levels. You think about what he can do. But it'd be kind of neat to see him leave Earth even. Just, do his thing and say, hey, I can't be here. And maybe he takes his parents off to another world, or they do some type of, intergalactic travel or something different with him. But I definitely don't want his story to end with him in prison. I'd like to see him get out. I'd like to see him, actually show there is a good guy in there. Because it's interesting, because you think about the cover that that gets printed is The Menace of Ulysses. Mm-hmm. But Clark's original headline that he submitted was The Tragic Story Behind Ulysses. But Perry had to change it because it was too soft. He needed a little bit more edge to the cover to sell papers. And I like the fact that, again, we're seeing that Clark is saying, hey, he's not a bad guy. And you can just imagine how the story was written, in that it probably gave the story from Ulysses' point of view, how he was going to kill millions of people, but and it's to save his entire planet. You sacrifice 1 million to save 1 billion. It's that whole kind of ends justify the means type of logic, and it's a difficult moral dilemma, and I like the fact that it was brought up, and it was included in that article.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I really enjoyed about this story, that there's this really cool debate there. Here's the problem. Ulysses got a lot of things working against him. It's not even the moral issue of it. He was raised elsewhere by a whole different culture. So it's not just about rehabilitating. It's rehabilitating and, does he acclimate to Earth? Your idea of, maybe he works better elsewhere, maybe that is the end result for Ulysses. He doesn't really work on our planet because, but maybe there is somewhere out there for him. I don't know. That's what's intriguing about him. What could he be? He's kind of what I liked about Azrael, in the sense that, and I don't mean that it's a cookie cutter Azrael thing. I don't mean that at all. What I liked about Azrael was you saw very different facets of Azrael in his journey. He's kind of first this good guy who is training with Batman to kind of learn to control himself in the system and everything that has been unleashed on him. Then he turns into Asbats and goes mad, and eventually has to be taken down by the returning Batman, and then goes on the road to redemption. It's a very rough sort of relationship where it's very tentative with Batman, but then eventually becomes Batman's friend and confidant, mm-hmm. and they start to trust each other, and Azrael starts to build himself beyond the system and learn to control it. I really loved his journey, and Denny O'Neil did, I think, a brilliant. I'm a big fan of Denny O'Neil, and I think the Azrael journey, especially the first couple years of it, I think is very underrated, the Azrael solo series, in what it did and delivered and the kind of story that it was. So I'd love to see, I don't know that Ulysses needs to necessarily have his own book. I don't mean it that way, but I definitely want to see more of Ulysses, and I want to see where his journey is. If they do a redemption story with him, cool. I don't think it's going to be clean and simple with him. And I also think it'd be a waste if it was, because I think there's a much more interesting story to tell there, with the fact that he is from somewhere else, and he's really he's a square peg in a round hole, just by the fact of his life experiences. So I'd like to see some of that explored. He's interesting.
Yeah, now it's one of the things I'm wondering, though, this epilogue with, once again, this mysterious figure who's been monitoring Clark and all that stuff, and just... who is that? I'm dying to know who that is.
I don't know. It's somebody who's so proud.
Yeah, but he knows everything about Clark. He knows everything about Superman. He's monitoring him, and he's sending him a package. So I'm hoping that package will appear next issue, and we'll get to deal with that way. But I want to know what happens. Plus, the human for a day. I want to see where that goes, because if Superman, because the title says next human for a day, we have the big Superman reveal where Clark reveals he's Superman. I'm assuming this is after he's had a chance to recharge the batteries.
No, it's without the batteries.
So right now, Clark Kent is revealing to Jimmy Olsen that he's Superman, but he doesn't have any Superman powers.
Right.
So are they going to let...
Oh.
Okay, you're Superman, fly. Well, I can't fly right now. I got to wait. to recharge the batteries. Clark, that's a funny joke.
Right.
Is he going to believe it? Because if you or I said, hey, I'm Superman, I don't know about you, the first thing I'd do is I'd punch you in the gut.
Wait.
That'd be my first reaction.
Wait a minute. I was very into the next issue in general. Yeah. I wasn't even thinking of that. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I don't think human for a day is a throwaway. I think he really is human right now still. I mean, in the sense that he doesn't have Superman powers. Oh my gosh, is that going to make this issue so much more fun coming up?
Yeah. Can you imagine like Jimmy Olsen right now punches Clark Kent and doubles him over in one punch? Come on, you're not Superman. I just hit you. It didn't work.
What a great catch. I didn't even catch that. And it's funny now talking about the epilogue and where it went. Ooh, boy. Who is that guy watching him?
Yeah.
Part of me was wondering, is that Jor-El? Is it Jonathan on some level? It's got to be somebody close to him, right?
Well,
Clark, I'm so proud.
And where are they watching from? And we've gotten images of the face. It's obviously a male. It looks like the one part of half his face has got some, his eye looks like it's messed up. So, yeah, I don't know. And it's driving me nuts. Like where he carries that staff that's kind of like a sickle, sort of. I'm trying to rack my brain if I've ever seen that image anywhere before. And I'm like, who is this guy? I want to know, and I want them to, they've been teasing this guy for a couple issues now, and I'm like, yeah, I like the build-up, don't get me wrong, but I want to know.
I hope across the Superman books the numbers are going up. Readership either returning to the books or, getting the word out that the books are really interesting right now. Just because, nowadays, I think it's one of the things that... I think it's almost become like taboo to talk about some of the bigger characters. It's kind of like you've got to talk about the smaller books. And you should. Don't get me wrong. I'm not throwing that away. You should talk about the smaller books. You should talk about indies. There's nothing wrong, though, with acknowledging when a top-tier book is doing a great job, because it's all about bringing people to great comics. And that is really available in all shapes and sizes. I talked about the Vertigo Quarterly, as something I'm digging. That's a smaller book, in the sense that it's an anthology and a lesser known title. And it's a very relevant book, and I was just excited about that as I was about this issue. But I don't think there's anything wrong. Our sales numbers on the biggest comic book right now are abysmal. I mean, compared to what they should be, I think, for the quality that's being delivered in comics right now. So I think we need to shout out all this stuff. When something's good, let people know about it. Really, let's get the word out about that and reach out to readers who may be interested in particular material. This would be a great thing to give a fan of like TV shows like Smallville, who, have never, become like, I really liked Smallville, but I haven't read Superman. Give them this and just kind of say, hey, there's this really cool series going on now today. Or somebody maybe like the Man of Steel film. It's a great series. Give them the issues of Superman with his Ulysses story. I just think this is a great way to get people interested in some of the comics, or recommend that they pick it up from the app, or a local shop or something like that. It's so easy and accessible to get this stuff now. There's a lot of great ways to give this material to somebody, and this is a story I wouldn't hesitate to recommend.
Oh, definitely. I agree. I completely agree. This was start to finish. This Ulysses story was a really cool, really cool journey. And I liked how they're building, and we're at the end of one story, but then the story hasn't ended. It's still that continuation. It doesn't feel, the story's ended, but it feels like there's still more continuing that's going to build off of this. And I like the fact that we can't have that, growth.
You know, what I had a chance to pick up too that I haven't had a chance to read yet, but I'm going to read it tonight. Speaking of Superman, I did grab Action Comics, because it came out too, and I'm digging that book immensely. So I haven't read it. Admit it. Did you grab it or?
I haven't, and I haven't read it yet.
Okay,
no.
That's going to be tonight. I didn't have time. Yeah. It's not an issue of quality. It's actually I'm chomping at the bit for more Superman, and I'm so thrilled that I've got that because I'm like, wow, more new Superman. It's really just a fun time to be a Superman fan. So I'm excited for that.
He is called Hawkman. His gauntlets possess awesome powers.
Jim, our next episode, we are going to be jumping to talk about the weekly books, DC weekly books, and we're also going to talk about Earth One and World's Finest and how they relate to the stuff that's going on in the weekly books right now. So we'll be jumping to that. We're actually going to be recording it on Sunday. So if you want to call into the show, please call our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We already have some voicemails lined up that from callers that have already called in. Those are definitely going to be on the next episode. Want to remind everyone about our show website, ragingbullets.com. It's where you find news and what's going on with the podcast. We do have that link to our Twitter. We do have a Facebook page. It's a regular Facebook fan page, but we have a Facebook group, and I really encourage people, if you haven't joined it, to consider joining our Facebook group. If you're not familiar with them, they're very much like the forum concept. The community is amazing. They do regular chats about comics and pop culture on there. There's just a wonderful community that takes it so far beyond that. There's friends who link to their blogs. There's regular discussions about everything DC. They'll post, basically when the solicits come out, any news tidbit goes on. This is about news, television, film, and it does extend beyond DC to all of pop culture. It's just a great, safe, fun community of people like yourself, like all of us, who just want to chat about this stuff that we all know and love. So I can't recommend the community enough, and it's associated with our show in the sense that we put it up there and started it, but something like that only succeeds by the quality of the people there. Our listeners and friends took it so far beyond our podcast. It's not really ours, it's theirs. And it's really, honestly, the truth. It belongs to the community there. I'm a visitor. They own it. In the sense that they bring the content and the great discussions there. So thank you to everybody who participates there. I think it's just a great community, and I'm proud to shout it out because our friends have really made it their own, and I really appreciate them for doing it. So it's good stuff. Sponsoring this episode is once again DCBService.com, where, Jim, they can pick up
some wonderful bundle deals for you. We have all of the supporting Convergence titles 50% off, one-click bundle, get it one-time shopping, as well as the Convergence Chip Kid variant bundles. Once again, all of the supporting Convergence titles, one-click shopping, get all the variant titles. Go into the regular main page. You can get the order Convergence as well, also at a discount. This is some great time for Convergence, getting some great discounts.
Yeah, and those Convergence weekly books are 50% off as well. Issue 1, 2, 3, and 4 is available there, and that's 50% off as a discount, all that. So the whole thing, the whole shebang, you can get at 50% off from DCBService.com. InStockTrades.com. Superman Earth 1 hardcover, Volume 3, $22.99 regularly, 50% off, only $11.49. Superman Happy. I'm reading that in a minute. I'm super excited for that book. 136 pages of Superman goodness. I love this take. To me, DC's at its best when it embraces the multiverse aspect of DC, not afraid to play with their character concepts and show them in a different light with a different universe. That's the key. It's a different universe. I love that take on it. Earth 1 has been nothing but stellar, so I'm excited to read this one. Jim? On that note, we are going to see everyone next week when we talk weeklies.
Bye!
On November 13th, Sean Whalen was asked to stop constantly talking about comic books. That request came from his wife. Deep down, he knew she was right, but he also knew that someday he would find someone that would talk to him. With nowhere else to go, he appeared at the home of his childhood friend Jim Segulin. Sometime earlier, Segulin's boss had requested that he shut up about his comic books and never speak of them again. Can two grown men put out a DC Comics podcast without driving each other crazy? It's Raging Bullets, the DC Comics fan podcast. with Sean Whalen as Dr. Norge, and Jim Seguin as the Sensei of the Whatnot and the Duke of You Know. It's a spoiler podcast, so they will go in depth into the plot line, story twists, and whatnot of the comics they are reviewing. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you may better enjoy the show.